Doug hears us from, but it pretty much picks up, yeah.
Oh, it is, okay.
Just the little circular one that's there.
Okay.
Yeah, but he can hear us from anywhere, I think, in the room.
Sorry.
Good evening and welcome to the Town of Rockland Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. Please stand and join us for the pledge of allegiance. Chief the oath, you start us off?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPSRockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. First on the agenda, community announcements. Gordy?
Awesome. Town moderator Kevin Henderson reached out and asked that we please have a moment of silence for two individuals. Richard Doherty, who is a retired town custodian and call firefighter, and also Audrey Ryan, the retired Council on Aging board member and Housing Authority board member. So if you all could lead a moment of silence, that would be great.
Okay, before we jump into that, anybody have anything they want to share or say about if you knew any of them? I know I knew of Audrey. I didn't know her, but Dick Doherty was a custodian in the school system for a lot of years, and I think every student that passed through the school knew him very well. So with that, extend obviously our condolences to both their families, and commence the moment of silence. Thank you. Any other community announcements, Cody?
Yeah, only other community announcement is just to let the community know that Town Hall will be closed on both December 25th and January 1st. Just a quick heads up for the community.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, minutes from meeting of 12/5/23. Myself and Donna will be abstaining, but I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? And 2 abstentions. Thank you. Next on the agenda, new business, one-day liquor license, Bill Small, GAR Hall, 34 School Street, 12/23/23. Courtney?
We still have not received their application, so I think we can move forward with the next item on the agenda,
Okay.
which is...
Next on the agenda, early opening Players Sports Bar and Grill, 86 VFW Drive, 12/24/23 and 1/1/24. So I think this was just obviously those being pretty busy days in the restaurant business. So I think Jackie was just looking to be able to open up a little bit earlier if need be. So I'd recommend that we approve, but I would also say that if anybody else is looking to open up early on those days, that we allow that to happen as well, as long as they inform the town or the police department. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Next on the agenda, license renewals.
Is that me?
All right. This is the easiest one yet. Who wants to read it?
I will.
There you go. That was quick.
Make a motion to approve pending all obligations have been met. Common victualler, 1 Themis Pizza, 488 Market Street. 2 King's BB's Pizzeria, 440 Union Street. Lodging, 1 Triangle House, 167 West Water Street. Class 2, 1 N&R Automotive Repair, 31 East Water Street. Livery, 1 EFK LLC, 482 Union Street.
So we have a motion from Tiffany, pending approval, all obligations have been met. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, snow stipend approval, Highway Superintendent Dave Taylor, but we'll go to Doug first. Open that up. Doug?
Thanks, Mike. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, so nice to be with you remotely. I will be at your next meeting on January 2nd. I look forward to being there in person. So I just wanted to highlight, we've been doing this every year for the last 4 years that I've been here, and I think probably longer than that before me. It saves the town money to pay a modest stipend to Dave Taylor to actually physically do some snow and ice plowing. We don't have a large department, and it's, not normal that a DPW director or a highway superintendent or someone in Dave's position would do that type of work. And again, if we didn't do this, we'd be hiring a private contractor at a much higher rate. So I'll certainly let Dave speak for himself, but I recommend approval of this. And I also just thought I'd kind of tee up the next item too, Mike, before you got into Dave, which was the South Shore Recycling Cooperative appointment. That is something normally filled by Board of Health members. Currently, no members of the Board of Health are able to sit in that function. Deli, the health agent, sits as one of those members. I'm told that normally it's DPW directors that sit on that group, and they're basically help to enable towns to do joint cooperative purchases for recycling equipment. We've gotten a lot of grants through them. So I just thought I'd kind of tee up both things and thank Dave for being willing to be the second town's representative on that cooperative. And with that, I'll turn it over to you and Dave.
Thanks, Doug. All right, Dave, thanks for coming in. Obviously, this is something that we do every year. We started this, I don't know, probably 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was second or third year I was in.
Yeah, and then it was, basically done for the fact that in these snow emergencies, you are out there for, over, 24 hours at times, plowing the roads and stuff like that. And in most cases, operating the front end loader, which is typically as a subcontractor rate, as of 6 or 7 years ago, would run anywhere around $80-something, where the rate that we're offering you through this stipend would be around $40. So if you want to speak to it a little bit more, by all means.
Yeah, so, obviously I approached the board on this, I think, for my second or third year. So, typically my first and second year, I kind of just drove around, checked out the snow operations. Like every community around us, we're not getting the amount of contractors or subcontractors that enable us to, stay ahead of storms. We're very fortunate the amount that we have and the contractors that we have, not to mention our crew leaders, at Highway and also at Parks. So I think it enables me. My route is the center in Town Hall, so I do everything from Magoon's Biggins, the intersections, all the way up to North Ave and Holy Family. So that's my cleanup. I have a couple of skid steers that work with me clearing the sidewalks. What we do is we started a couple years ago where we actually load out the snow during the bigger storms.
Mm-hmm.
So if anyone's noticed the bump outs that used to have the huge piles on them, those piles are cut out during the storm. That enables us not to have to do a heavy cleanup a day or two after. So I have my licenses for it, so I kept my licenses going. I don't want to lose that. And I still don't mind doing snow in the middle of the night. This doesn't overlap with my regular hours. This is simply overnight hours. It doesn't have to do with any other storms like the past storm we just had. This is just snow and ice related. It also enables me to do when we are pre-treating and treating as well. So when we get called out to do sanding, which I still don't mind driving a truck around. So I think it's a good thing for the town. We kept the rate. The rate hasn't gone up. I kept it at 50. Our rates for subcontractors now are actually through the roof because all the towns around us came up and went up higher than us this year. So we had to go up and meet, their standards, so we didn't lose subcontractors. Everybody around us is very low contractors, including the state. So I know no one's crying, low, but we're lower than we usually are. But again, we're very fortunate on the amount that we have, compared to other towns our size. So I don't know if anybody has any questions on some of the snow related activities or.
No, I was just curious, there's a new sign outside of the town hall that blinks in blue.
Yeah.
And it's blinking right now. Does that mean we're not supposed to park?
No, it's just what we typically do is we leave that on for a week just to get any of the bugs out of it.
Yeah.
Turn on as long as it stays on. you know, want, make sure it doesn't overheat. We started those, last year. You know, some of the towns are instilling that. That just makes, you know, we get into a bigger storm, the center's usually, the chief could, you know, he can, you know, back me up on this. You know, we do a very good job of implementing with the police, you know, the day of, the night of a storm. You know, we try to, you know, we put that out, so those are flashing. There's one on, when you enter on Hingham Street where the Welcome to Rockland sign is. There's one at our facility on Market Street, and there's one in the center. So that's just, you know, it's just one other area where, you know, people, you know, they can see that sign blinking, they know this is a snow emergency, there's no parking allowed in the streets. You know, we've gotten better. I think the chief, I mean, you know, even when you were lieutenant, Nick, you know, you've seen it. Like my first year, I think we towed 30 cars, you know, and then it got less and less and less, and every year it's less, you know, and it's just, and it's, you know, it is a hindrance when cars are out there and you're driving a big vehicle or a loader with a 12-foot blade on it. You know, you don't have the maneuverability that, you know, you're driving around in a little car. So, you know, it makes it a lot easier when vehicles are off the road. So that's just one way we're trying to be proactive on doing that, so,
Okay.
yeah.
John?
Yeah, I guess maybe this is more of a budget procedural question. Why do we do it this way versus having it listed explicitly in the budget that gets voted on at town meeting? Maybe someone can explain that.
So this
part
is,
to me.
so this was done, and it's a good question, but this was done as a just in case, because we don't know what we're gonna have for snow each year. So it becomes one of those things, if you put that money towards it, then that's a set amount, and I guess it can be turned back, but it is capped also. I believe we had it capped at $10,000.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
it's capped at $10,000. Obviously, I don't believe last year you got even close to that with very
No.
minimal snow.
No, just seeing in events and treating, that's it.
And this was just the way that we decided to go about doing it, as opposed to just following to the bottom line salary for him otherwise.
Right, I just didn't know if we would maybe add a second line under his salary, like a $10,000 snow stipend, and that way the voters at town meeting get to decide if this is something we should do rather than
There are towns that do
us.
that. I
Yeah,
know
that's good.
Johnstone, I'm sorry, not,
No, you're good.
but Johnstone and Abington, that's, so like our town employees such as, you know, Parks and our employees down at the highway, they do get a snow stipend. That covers them and also binds them into almost a contract. You know, they're available for both snow and ice. You know, some of the directors around us actually get a stipend for that. I approached it this way only because they don't drive machinery or anything, and there may be a time that I'm not gonna go out sanding, so I don't feel I should get that whole stipend, because I may not go out sanding. And I may, you know, so you're only paying me for the time that I'm actually doing those hours. It's literally the same time my guys are. I don't feel it would be, there are guys that get that, just what you referred to, John, they get a $5,000 or $10,000 snow stipend, but they're also not, you know, they're sitting in the shop or they're driving around and they're just checking out snow and ice operations. So for the town, I felt that was the approach at the time. I mean, at any point, anybody can come up with another idea. I'm, you know, more than happy, you know, to hear it. You know, I just thought at the time this wasn't a big thing. It might be, you might get one storm, it might be, you know, $500 you pay, you know, who knows. Last year it wasn't a lot. You know, you go back 2 or 3 years ago, it was a lot, you know, so.
I mean, I guess it would still.
I make one comment, please? I'm sorry, it's hard for me not being in the room, I apologize. It's a good question John asked, and what I think maybe another way what John might have been saying was just add the whole amount to the budget, but it's still a stipend, so if, you know, he doesn't go out and plow, then he doesn't get it. I guess my only thought is, we know that we are very low in budgeting snow and ice. We've been trying for years, ever since I've been here, to increase the snow and ice budget, but it's the one budget under state law that we're allowed to deficit spend because it varies so greatly. So, in my opinion, it would be good to add to the budget, but we need to increase. We should probably double the entire snow and ice budget, add another $150,000, because we always deficit spend it. So, for me, we have so many other priorities to make the budget balance. That wouldn't be the highest priority for me until we got to a point where we were able to like more fully fund the entire snow and ice budget. That's been my thought, but it's a good question.
Yeah, and I think you were pretty much along my train of thought. The 10,000 wouldn't be just given in one check. It would still be drawn down as you use it. But again, it would, the voters, I feel more comfortable with all of the voters at town meeting voting on it than just us see if they think this is a good idea or not. I think we could probably do that. You know, we're gonna talk about the budget and a couple other agenda
Yeah.
items, so I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Absolutely, and
That
just
maybe
draw
for next
down
year,
on
we
it.
can look at it, doing it that way, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not against that. I think when you first asked the question, I thought you were saying, I guess I didn't realize what you were saying, but then I started thinking about it, yeah, it's just voted as a stipend, it's returned back anyway, so, yeah, it makes
So
sense, but.
That was my only question. is
So-
yeah,
the
it could be a
mechanism, why we
sub-line,
do it this
Yep,
way, yeah.
that makes sense.
it could be like what John said, you could have like a subcategory out of
Mhm.
snow and ice, and it's just simply there as like a drawdown, and whatever's left over is left over, and maybe you just run it as a bottom line, snow and ice budget. But like Doug referred to, we've been operating in that 150 since I've been here, and
Since
everything's
you were in
doubled.
finance.
I mean,
Yes,
salt
it's
is
always-
doubled.
I inherited 150.
I inherited 150.
Right,
Yeah.
equipment's doubled, everything is doubled. I mean, there's a lot of different things that come out of snow and ice, you know, we push for, you know, the potholes, you know, the asphalt for the potholes, like when you get a snow event or even a salting event or treatment, you know, that obviously with the heaving and the frost and the salt and the sand, that causes a lot of potholes, so we do use that, you know, and then all the, all the stipends come out of that.
Mhm.
And then we allot, $20,000 to $25,000 on updating equipment. So right off the bat, out of that 150, 50 is right off the top.
And
So
then all it
you're
takes
up
is-
and in at one.
All it takes is two, ice events or snow events and your deficit spending.
That's correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so with that said, for this year anyway, I'll entertain a motion to approve the snow stipend for Highway Superintendent Dave Taylor.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor? Okay. Next, Dave, you wanna talk a little bit about the, South Shore Recycling Cooperative and your appointment?
alright, so right now, Deli approached me on it, and she couldn't get it, obviously any of the other board members to do it. Our department right now does most of we do all the work up at the recycling center besides checking in and checking out, and dealing with the customers. So any of the improvements, the pushbacks, the cutbacks, the grinding, the mulching, the sweeping, any of that, we've been doing it. So I think, obviously, I think it will open us up to more grants, if I get involved with that. We've got quite a bit of grants over at Highway right now. So I think it would open us up as like a joint grant, whether it be equipment, because we are renting a lot of screeners and grinders. So I think it opens us up to a lot of grant opportunities, and I don't mind writing grants. So I think it would be helpful in the long run.
Okay, if anybody has any questions or comments about that, if not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the appointment.
Mike, I should have added earlier, they generally do 3-year terms, so I'd recommend you appoint Dave for a 3-year term.
So I'll, if nobody has any questions or comments, then I'll entertain a motion for appointment for a 3-year term to the South Shore Recycling Cooperative for Dave Taylor.
Motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor? That's unanimous, thank you, Dave, thanks for
Okay.
coming in.
I don't know if was going to just touch base on the last storm that we just had the other day.
By all means.
Just let you know that, we had about 15 to 20 trees come down, that's not including private. So for us on a storm-related activity, I think this was it was very low for us considering the towns around us. I know the towns around us are a lot worse. We had a little over 400 residents lose power, which is pretty low on an event like that. It does have a lot to do with our proactive tree trimming that we have, that we're working with National Grid on. The trees that we do take down, National Grid, we implemented a program where they actually will cut us a check at the end of the year and replace those trees 2 to 1 that we remove. That's a requirement we require for all our developers and contractors when they have to take a tree down. So that's pretty much it. So we'll probably be wrapped up in most of that storm activities by Thursday or Friday this week, which if you consider where we were in October a couple of years ago, you know, that was, you know, quite a bit, so.
All right.
Any
Well,
questions on that,
anybody?
or?
Seeing none. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate
Okay.
your time.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Next on the agenda, FY25 from a budget submission. Doug?
Thanks, Mike. So as the board knows, I have a deadline per the town charter to submit a budget by December 31st. So it's always extremely preliminary at this point, but I want to be able to check the box and have something submitted so we're in compliance with the charter. So I'm just going to share my screen. I know you have this in your packet. There were some last minute updates made that I did email, and I believe Sue has updated your binders accordingly. So just to really cut right to the chase, the bottom right-hand corner in yellow, you'll see there's a deficit of 1.8, almost $1.9 million. Not freaking out now because it is very early, but I just thought it would be helpful to see, you know, the aggregate sheet. A couple of things to note. This does reflect, you know, some conservative assumptions that the town accountant Scott Curtis made in putting this together. For example, if you look at the increases in state aid, I think that's a 3% increase, which is, you know, not unreasonable. We obviously hope it'll be greater than that. In some prior years, we've kept it, you know, completely flat at a 0% increase, and that deficit looks, you know, even worse. But, you know, generally, we have conservative estimates. On the expense side, we followed our normal process where we sent out budget request forms to all the departments, and this reflects everybody's requests. We've not had any budget meetings yet. We've not pared anything back. So part of the reason why this initial projected deficit is so large, you know, not only do we not have new revenue numbers, but we have all the requests that folks asked for. So you'll see, obviously, the biggest one in pure dollar amounts is from the school department. I think that comes out to almost probably around a 9% increase. They have a lot of expenses that they're looking to be funded, and there's a number of other increases throughout all the various general government departments as well. And we have some conservative assumptions in there for things like health insurance and other things. So with that, maybe I'll just go to my next page, which is a highlight of some of the issues I wanted to capture. So hopefully you can see the next slide. Do you see the PowerPoint slide?
Yes.
Transfer? Okay, great. So yeah, again, just wanted to capture some of my high-level highlights from revenues and expenses. I'm a little nervous about state aid. I've heard from a number of sources that, you know, there's a revenue shortfall with the state in the current fiscal year that we're in now. I'm not quite sure exactly what segment in the economy is off, but revenues are short, and there have been persistent rumors of 9C cuts. The latest information from the governor was that she's not going to be pursuing 9C cuts, that there's other ways in the state budget to manage it. They have a rainy day fund and other things. But I do worry if A&F continues to get bad news on revenues, that there's a potential for that. That would obviously be catastrophic the later we get into the fiscal year. But more importantly, as we look forward to FY25, I just think revenue shortfalls now, it just portends a bad omen for next year. So we'll just have to see what the governor's House 1 budget looks like when it comes out in about a month or so. And the only other kind of high-level revenue item I just thought I'd notice is the potential for rooms tax revenue loss at the Comfort Inn due to the emergency shelter. It's really going to be very difficult for us to quantify that. We've been trying. But what's difficult is we just get a quarterly payment that reflects all the rooms tax revenue from everywhere in town. So it's all the hotels, Airbnbs, everything aggregated. We don't get hotel-specific data. And so it's going to be really difficult for us to understand exactly what the impact is. Again, the most current information is that the state is going to pay the rooms tax for 90 days, and anything after the 90 days they won't. So maybe for the first 90 days, we're going to be seeing an increase in revenue at the Comfort Inn because maybe all those rooms wouldn't have been booked otherwise, but maybe there'll be a shortfall after. And maybe, you know, I'm just hypothesizing here, maybe some of the stays that would have been at the Comfort Inn would now be shifted to the other hotels, and there won't really be any loss. So it's just a question mark. We don't know. We'll keep doing our best to look into it. On the expense side, you know, the school department will have a lot of costs they're gonna be looking to have funded. I just highlighted two of the biggest ones that I've heard them mention, which are special education costs and transportation related to the emergency shelter. I don't believe that they're gonna be fully funded from the state for the transportation expenses associated with the shelter, so that could be significant. The educational incentives that we agreed to in the most recent collective bargaining agreements for both the police and fire unions, those are gonna be significant costs, recurring costs added to the budget that we're gonna have to fund as we've agreed to those expenses. But I just wanted to highlight it because it is a significant increase. There's also gonna be, we've already experienced an increase in our property insurance bill related to the Phelps Elementary School. And that's basically because we had two small, really old schools, Memorial Park and Jefferson, and when those went offline and the new Phelps School went online, again, you know, the grand total cost of construction for us was, you know, over $70 million. Obviously, a lot of that was architecture, engineering, project management, but still, you know, just the sheer value of that building has significantly increased our property insurance. We're gonna offset that at the end of the year, this year, with some year-end transfers, but we'll have to increase that budget next year. Health insurance is always a question mark. It's you know, a huge budget for us, and there's always some uncertainty. But I was just talking to the HR director, Stacy Callahan, today, when she's been talking with our broker, working with Blue Cross, and so we feel like we should be in a good place to not have a massive increase this year. We feel like we should be in a good spot, but that's just always a question mark because the budget is so large. I talked earlier about how we're gonna have to start managing the Mount Pleasant Cemetery now that the town has acquired it. And again, that was a private cemetery, completely private. The town was forced to accept it because it was going to be abandoned. So as a result, we have to maintain it. So I've asked Highway Superintendent Dave Taylor to recommend something in his budget that would almost be like a cemetery division to help deal with all the different aspects of the management and maintenance of that cemetery, or at least a first step in all of the management of it. So I haven't even looked at those numbers yet, but I know that they are built into the expense that I showed you earlier. And then lastly, the Board of Health recently did a request for proposals and has selected a new vendor for a curbside trash pickup, so it will no longer be Republic going forward. I think they're still in some final contract negotiations, so I do have a question mark on there because I don't have the final amount. I do not think it'll be any kind of significant increase. Hopefully we could get some savings there, but I just wanted to flag it because that's not an enterprise fund yet. That is still funded through the general fund, not as an enterprise fund. So that's something we have to be very mindful of, especially with a change with a new contractor. So those are my high level thoughts. Our next steps are going to be to continue to have all the budget meetings with each department head, start looking at revenues more closely, look at the governor's budget when it comes out, and then really start making adjustments to get us into a balanced budget and go through the whole normal process with the finance committee like we do every year. So that's all I have on that right now, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Doug. Any questions from members of the board?
Yeah,
Ward?
I do. I read in the newspaper that a rather large business in Rockland is going to be moving to Boston, the Serrano Corporation. Does this budget consider that?
So we've not made any adjustments there.
Yeah, okay.
Obviously we hope another business will come in and assume that space. But no, we've not made any adjustments for EMD Serrano leaving Rockland.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Doug, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next on the agenda, MWRA Regional Expansion Feasibility Study Update. Doug?
Great, thanks, Mike. So I know I very generally briefed the board on this earlier, and the board has agreed to set aside some ARPA funding for it. So I just thought I'd give you a little bit more of an update. And I just want to be careful not to get too far ahead of this because this is a regional project, and I think we're going to start coordinating our messaging and our communications on it, but given the progress that we've made recently and some of the details, I felt obligated to give you all a little bit more of an update. So the first thing I just want to highlight right out of the gate is that this is for drinking water only. This has nothing to do with sewer or wastewater treatment. This is only for water. So we were approached by some neighboring towns to explore whether there's any possibility to connect to MWRA in the future. And the other towns that we're working with are Hingham, Cohasset, Hanover, Norwell, Situate, and Abington. And Hingham is really taking the lead on this effort. So I included in your packet a memorandum of understanding that all the towns signed in late November to commit us to agree to just exploring this concept as a group. And sort of the impetus of this is that the MWRA has up to 50 million gallons a day of excess water capacity, of which 20 million gallons per day they're making available to new entrants. And then most importantly, the MWRA is waiving their entrance fee until the end of 2027. So any new entrant that gets their completed application in by December 31st, 2027 could save the millions and millions and millions of dollars of entrance fees. So that's obviously a very attractive opportunity. So this group, we are looking at conducting a regional study basically to determine two things. Number one is what our water needs are, and then number two, what the infrastructure required would be if we were able to connect to the MWRA. So we're estimating that this engineering study could cost approximately $100,000, which would be split between all the participating towns that I mentioned earlier, and it would be split proportionally based on each town's number of water connections. So the Abington-Rockland Joint Waterworks has approximately 26% of the water connections of the entire group, and Rockland is, I think, about half of that. And for just broad purposes now, let's just assume we're half of that because we generally split everything 50-50 with Abington. So we'd have around a $13,000 share of that contract. So all the towns have agreed to use our ARPA funds to pay for it, and the board has already set aside funding for this. These, however, even though it's a regional effort on our part, they would all be individual ARPA applications submitted by each town. Unfortunately, while Plymouth County does have a separate set of ARPA funds set aside solely for regional applications, because Cohasset is in our group, but Cohasset's not in Plymouth County, we're not able to access those Plymouth County regional ARPA funds. So it'll come out of each town's individual application. But again, assuming our share is only around $13,000, it's not a huge deal. So we're in the process right now of drafting the request for qualifications to hire the engineering company. We met with the MWRA via Zoom yesterday, and that was a really effective meeting, I thought. We reviewed our engineering RFQ scope of services with the MWRA, and they agreed that it made sense. And this I thought was pretty interesting. The MWRA indicated that they're looking to expand to communities that meet at least one of the following three criteria. Number one is local sources of water are impacted by quality issues like PFAS. Number two is that local sources of water are stressed, meaning there's low supply. And number three is the local economic development is constrained by lack of supply of water. And we obviously meet all three of those criteria, and I think all the towns are in the same boat. So I don't think we'll have any issue being eligible in that sense. So if we do this study, and if the study concludes that it makes sense for the towns to pursue MWRA, the next steps very broadly would be we'd need to seek town meeting approval. We'd have to complete an MWRA regional application, and then seek legislative and governor approval. And then assuming all that happens and passes, then we'd negotiate a final MWRA agreement. So as far as timing goes, we're working on the procurement of an engineer right now. That's going to probably take a couple months to issue the RFQ, receive the responses, interview the firms, and award the contract. Once we do that, it'll probably take about a year to complete the study. So then from that point, assuming that we want to continue, we need to get the application into the MWRA, as I mentioned earlier, before that December 31st, 2027 deadline. And while that seems like a long way off, I'm told the application is incredibly involved and can take a long time, so it's actually kind of tight. One of the other things the MWRA highlighted to us that everybody thought was very important was that this kind of a regional approach like we're looking to do is going to be complicated because we're definitely going to have to coordinate with the town of Weymouth because most likely the pipe is going to come through Weymouth. And we're also going to have to coordinate a lot with the Department of Environmental Protection, especially regarding quality testing of the water, because we're going to most likely not be solely reliant on MWRA. We'd be mixing or blending water sources from the MWRA plus the Abington-Rockland Joint Waterworks. Then it will continue down the pipes. They refer to it as wheeling. It'll be wheeled into other communities, and as it gets blended, there'll be extensive testing that needs to get done. So there's a lot of coordination that will need to be done. So if everything goes, really well, this is probably like a 10-year project from now until when somebody would open the faucet and there would actually be MWRA water running through their pipes. But again, MWRA did like the fact that we have a regional application. We have so many communities in the South Shore, and I think the legislature is keen on expanding to the South Shore as well. So that's generally where we're at. I'll definitely keep you updated if any timelines change or milestones are or not met, if we get any new information, but I just thought I'd give you a little bit more of an update. So be happy to try to answer any questions if you have any.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah. I have 3 questions. The first one is, Union Point is moving forward, trying to find water sources, and does this kind of boost their resilience in getting the source, and will they help pay for some of this? I mean, what are the entry fees these days for MWRA?
So I don't have the exact, well, actually, let me see if I can find it in my notes. The entrance fees are significant.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go. I think it's over $4 million per million gallons per day. So, again, depending on what our needs are, it's it's many millions of dollars. But again, the MWRA is waiving the entrance fee until the end of 2027. So that's part of our timing on this, is to get, if it's deemed appropriate and if it makes sense, to get an application in time to have our entrance fees waived.
Waive completely,
Yes.
or do we have to then
Waive.
pay?
No,
Waive.
Oh, okay,
The entrance
perfect.
fee would be waived completely.
Completely, perfect, okay.
There's still all the additional costs associated with us building out the infrastructure, the pipes,
Right.
Paying for the water, et cetera, but the entrance fee would be waived. What we're looking at won't necessarily, I don't think that Union Point is helping us, nor are they really hurting us, or vice versa. I mean, they're right there, kind of in the same geographic vicinity as, obviously Union Point is in Weymouth as well as Rockland and Abington.
Right.
I did ask about that at our MWRA meeting, and I think that timing-wise, we're all aligned. We're both in the kind of early stages of it, and again, they have 20 million gallons per day of excess capacity now, and I think all it would take would be a vote of the board of directors of the MWRA to increase the 20 up higher toward that 50 that's actually available. So I don't think, it's not as though Union Point, if they act a little faster, they're going to beat us to the punch and take water that we won't be able to get. I don't think that'll be an issue at all. I think our timing is actually aligned, but I don't know that, I think everybody's going to have to pay their fair share.
Yeah, okay. And my last question is, I know that the water department is currently putting in like GAC and resin filters, finishing filters for the water. If we get the MWA water, I think you answered this before, there would be a blending of it, so the GAC and resin filters, what we're paying for that is still,
Valid.
important.
Sure, so
okay.
no, that's a good question. So
Yeah.
a couple of things, I guess. One is, we haven't even hired the engineer yet, so we don't have a study, we don't have any technical analysis yet. We're all just assuming that if this all makes sense and if we can actually do it, MWRA would supplement all of the existing water sources. That's just an assumption. I mean, I'm not an engineer, so I can't really say, but it's we and the Abington-Rockland Joint Waterworks are absolutely not wasting money by pursuing those GAC filters now, because for all we know, it might not make sense for us to get MWRA water, or it might be so cost prohibitive to build out the whole distribution system that we just can't afford to do it. Or, you know, most likely, if it does make sense, we're gonna need both sources of water because there's such a lack of supply down here. So, no, they have to move forward with what they're doing at the joint water boards.
Okay, that's it, that's all I got.
All right, anybody? All right, well, thank you, Doug. I felt it was important. I know it's very early on in the process, and I know it's a regional project, so there's not a lot that can be discussed, but you often see, and you hear from residents, asking, what are we doing, saying that water is our priority. Well, this is what we're doing, and I felt it was important at least to be able to reference this meeting specifically to show them that we are taking this seriously and that we are taking steps. However, the load is long, but it's being traveled. So with that, we'll move on. Next on the agenda, other new business not raised as we anticipated. Courtney?
No, we don't have any other new business.
Okay, old business. Recreation Community Center feasibility study update. Doug?
Thanks, Mike. So for purposes of tonight, I'll keep it kind of brief. I mainly just wanted to go over our time frame, our timeline for you to make sure we're all on the same page, that you're comfortable with this timeline, because things are gonna start happening, and ultimately you're obviously going to be asked to take a vote as a board. So let me share my screen, and hopefully this will make some sense. So hopefully you can see this is our most current timeline for the project. So you can see the top row is where we are tonight. We're updating you, and over the next couple of months, in addition to updating you, we'll be updating the Finance Committee and the Capital Committee. I should have started by saying, our project team really hasn't changed. It's myself, the Assistant Town Administrator, Courtney, Jean Blaney. We have Rich Furlong, one of the Park Commissioners. I'm probably forgetting someone else in addition to the architects. And we've been doing a lot of work. We've had public outreach meetings, etc. So our plan is that we just had another meeting today with the architect, and we finalized enough information for them to send their package out to their independent cost estimator. And their independent cost estimator is going to get back to them with their cost estimate in time for the architect to send me a complete package by Friday, January 12th. So that'll get me the information in time to put in your packet for your meeting on January 16th. And our intention there is for Jean, Courtney, and me just to very preliminarily share this information with you, and what we believe it will include a site plan, some renderings, and cost estimates. So you can kind of really get a sense of what we're talking about, and get you kind of thinking about it, and in particular think about if there's any questions you might have or things you'd like raised for the architects to address when they come in and give you their formal presentation a couple weeks later on February 6th. So February 6th is when the architect will come in addition to sharing the information that I will have already shared with you on January 16th. They'll give you a full presentation, and we'll be able to answer questions you might have. So we can continue to talk about it at that meeting, let you continue to digest it for 2 more weeks, discuss it again at your following meeting on February 20th, and then a couple weeks later, this is really when the key deadline comes in, which is when we need the board to take a vote on March 5th. And the reason why we would need you to vote on the 5th, if we were going to pursue this project or not, is because it will have to be funded from a debt exclusion. And as the board knows, the debt exclusion is a 2-part process. It's town meeting and it's a ballot vote, and there's state law that has certain time frames for how many days before a town election a vote has to be taken by the Board of Selectmen in order for the town clerk to put it on a ballot. That deadline, as I noted, is March 9th. So there's the last meeting before March 9th is March 5th. So that March 5th is really the key date for you. And then assuming you do decide to put that on the ballot and on town meeting warrant, the town election is April 13th and town meeting is on May 6th. There would obviously be a lot of other outreach and communication with the public during that time. But this is basically all I wanted to share with you tonight. Is the timeline, make sure you're comfortable with it, and see if you had any questions or wanted anything different with the timeline.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Oh, okay. Lori?
Yeah. I have one, but it's not about the timeline. It's, this seems very similar to the firehouse trajectory. There's no grants available for this project?
Yeah, we are always actively looking at grants, and there might be some small, very small ones available, but, you know, even if there was a larger one, just like we did with the school project with the MSBA, we need to have funding, you know, for the entire project approved, but there's no grants out there that we're aware of that could completely fund a project like this, unfortunately. And we are actively meeting with appropriate state officials and federal officials to look at other kinds of earmarks and things like that, so we're always shaking those trees, but,
Yeah.
you know, we can't assume that will happen and hope it will happen, so we always have to plan for voter funding, and if some white knight comes through, or whatever the right expression is, a silver bullet, then that'll save taxpayers funding.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Next on the agenda, emergency shelter update. Doug?
Sure, thanks, Mike. So we currently have 106 people at the shelter. That's 51 adults and 55 children. I want to highlight the numbers are constantly changing, literally every day. As new people come in, pregnant women may give birth, other people are moving out. So the numbers are changing every day, but generally the numbers have been relatively flat in recent weeks. We've not seen any kind of significant increase. We've been continuing regularly to stress the lack of school capacity with the state. And the state is actively trying to limit the number of school-age children that they place in our shelters. So we've been, to be honest, I think the most vocal out of any community in the entire state about this particular point. The state is also engaging a lot more now with local healthcare and local community service organizations to provide services that are needed at the shelter. Think of like social work or case management type services. So those are really desperately needed. We're not able to provide that. We've been imploring the state to provide those services, so they're now more effectively engaging some of those local healthcare and community service organizations. So that's good. Going forward, I was talking to Courtney before the meeting tonight. I think we're probably only going to recommend that we put this on a selectman agenda item if there's really anything new or significant to report, because like I said, generally, you know, the numbers are changing modestly, a couple up, a couple down, day to day, but we're not seeing any real significant changes. So that's where we're at with the emergency shelter.
Okay. Any questions? Lori?
Yeah. Has there been any news about the state reimbursing us for our spend on the emergency management fund?
No, they have not come out with any
Yeah.
new information about that yet. So
Okay.
we are monitoring that closely, and we are, you know, tallying our costs. The biggest thing I'm worried about though is, you know, some of the school-related expenses.
Mhm.
Those are going to dwarf any
Yeah.
of the, you know,
Right.
general government out-of-pocket expenses. So
Right.
we are actively monitoring them.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, moving on. Other old business not reasonably anticipated. Courtney? None. Okay, town administrator / assistant town administrator report and correspondence. Doug?
Thanks, Mike. So, a few things. The first is the charter amendment the town meeting passed, making the Board of Selectmen the cemetery commissioners. That is moving its way through the legislative committees. It's now House Bill number H4010. I want to thank Representative DeCoste for his efforts helping to push that through and for keeping us up to date on that bill. Next, I wanted to highlight that we're continuing to follow up on our fire station feasibility study. Now that town meeting has approved it, the building committee just recently met. We discussed potentially hiring an independent owner's project manager if we have sufficient funding available in our appropriation for that. And the chief and I are actively following up with the architect to finalize the contract and the scope of work. So that is happening behind the scenes. This update to that study, plus the new study and a final recommendation, will not be done in time for this upcoming May. So our anticipation is, you know, we'll have something to present to the Board of Selectmen for a community center, recreation center project, but an updated fire station project will likely need to be at a later special town meeting or the following annual town meeting in May of '25. Next, I just wanted to mention, I think some of you are aware generally, but I wanted to highlight, and I did forward you some correspondence I received on this from the South Shore Regional Vocational Technical School. They have a building project that they're pursuing through the MSBA. Again, I did email you the most recent update I got. I just want to stress that this has the potential to be a very, very significant issue for the town of Rockland. They're pursuing a very large project. I think it's in the $350 million range. There's obviously other towns besides Rockland that are part of their district, and they've also recently added a town to the districts, but still, we're a relatively large share of South Shore Tech, so our share of a $350 million project will be significant. So my understanding is what South Shore Tech, what their school committee is going to be pursuing will be a regional ballot vote. So what that means is all the member communities would have an election, a ballot election at the exact same day and time. And it would be done in the aggregate. So the majority wins, a simple majority of the total would approve or not approve the project. So just to really make it simple, hypothetically, if the town of Rockland, unanimously at the ballot voted no against the project, but every single other town or majority of the other towns voted yes, the project will move forward. And then, we would have to fund a pretty significant debt exclusion to fund our share of covering that debt service. So I'm concerned about it, partly because it's a large project, but also partly because the financial impact on Rockland is not solely under Rockland voters' control, and so that's a scary thought. So my recommendation on this is that we ask the South Shore Tech Superintendent Tom Hickey to come into an upcoming Board of Selectmen meeting so he can discuss it more fully and you can ask him questions and get answers directly from him. I know that they recently had a public outreach meeting at our senior center, which I don't think, to be honest, anyone from the public attended. So I think if we have it at a selectmen's meeting, I think that'll really highlight the issue and you can get your questions answered. So that's that issue. And then three other quick ones. One is an old issue we've talked about before, our opioid settlement funds. We have over $158,000 currently available in that special purpose stabilization fund that we set up. So I was just recently discussing this with Courtney, and she's going to start looking at recommendations on uses of those funds that we could potentially put on the town meeting warrant at the next annual town meeting to make inroads. Again, those funds need to be spent on opioid related purposes. We can't just spend it on plowing roads or doing completely unrelated things. So that's something that Courtney will start to look at, and then we'll come forward with our recommendations to you later this winter. Next is all of our current pending ARPA applications have been approved. I'm very happy to report that. Again, Plymouth County's been very rigorous in their reviews, so they've all been approved. We still do have a couple more applications that we're going to need to submit for water and sewer per the previous allocations that the board has already approved. But the way the county does it, you need to have signed contracts, and we weren't quite ready to formally apply for everything we'd allocated, so we still have a few more to go, but everything we've submitted is now approved. And then lastly, I just thought I'd highlight that we just recently did some training for all department heads here in Town Hall. It was two-part: managing in a union environment and also preventing harassment and discrimination. And I just listened in on the speakerphone, and I was really impressed. I thought it was well done, and I was really pleased that staff was really engaged in the training and asked a lot of excellent questions. So I particularly want to thank Stacy for setting it up, and thank all the department heads that participated in that training. So that's all I have tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Next on the agenda, Selectmen's comments. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Board of Selectmen, and of the opinions and comments of only the individual member. Selectperson Elwood.
Keep it quick. I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you in January.
Thank you, John. Select Person Childs.
Ditto. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I hope everybody has a relaxing week in between.
Thank you, Lori. Select Person Shortall.
I would also like to say Merry Christmas. I grew up with Merry Christmas, but now I acknowledge the fact that there are many holidays out there that are celebrated at this time of year. So I wish everybody happy holidays and a safe New Year.
Thank you, Donna. Vice Chairman Needham.
Same, happy holidays to all and to all the kids who will be celebrating their school vacation. I hope you have a lot of fun, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody in January. And I'm very much looking forward to a happy 2024.
Thank you, Tiffany. So, yeah, I guess they really stole my thunder. The same. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. Happy birthday to Selectman Elwood yesterday, and Select Person Shortall celebrates her birthday on Christmas. So happy birthday to both of you guys, and see you guys all in the new year. Thank you very much. Have a great night. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
To executive session.
Into executive session. Thanks for the reminder. Into executive session, not to reconvene per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, litigation strategy, Shingle Mill LLC versus Town of Rockland Zoning Board of Appeals. Per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, litigation strategy, Town of Rockland versus Christopher Falco. And per Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, litigation strategy, Rockland Park Commissioners versus David B. McCarthy. With that, I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session, not to reconvene.
Motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second, all those in favor, roll call. Warren?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Tiffany?
Yes.
And myself. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.